when my husband's upgrade turned out to be his downfall. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My husband, the man who sneered at teachers, whispered, "Please, save me." I freeze, chalk dust still smudged on my sleeve from after-school tutoring. My name is Emma. I teach 8th grade language arts at a public school that still uses a boiler older than me. My job matters because kids who stop believing in their own voices tend to follow whoever shouts the loudest. Adrian has always been the loudest. He used to love the way I could turn chaos into essays, the way I could coax a shy kid into reading his paragraph out loud. Then he started calling it cute, then small, then training wheels. He upgraded, new friends with glossy teeth, a co-working membership with flavored oxygen, a wardrobe of limited edition sneakers that cost more than my semester classroom supply lists. The day he rebranded himself as a founder. "Experience architect," he said. I laughed. "He didn't. You're holding me back, Em," he told me, scrolling a feed of rooftop bars. "You don't scale." Tonight he's in our doorway at 11:47 p.m. breath mint and panic. The city's lights strobe behind him, 1,000 blinking judgments. He looks like a man who mistook a runway for a cliff. "I just need a bridge loan," he says, voice shiny with desperation. "Or a signature. You're solvent." I glance at our fridge, covered in essay rubrics, reminder magnets, and a photo of us when our future was thrifted and proud. My stomach does a slow, stupid somersault. "What happened?" I ask. "It's complicated," he says, which always means he hopes I'm too tired to ask for details. He's trembling. Adrian never trembles. "Please," he whispers, "don't make me explain here." I should tell him to leave. I should call Aunt Rosa, the only person who remembers me before I learn to excuse him like homework turned in late. Instead I say, "Sit." He perches like a man afraid of a stain. "You mocked my job yesterday," I say. "Said teachers are empathy cosplayers who can't handle adult money." He swallows. "I was wrong," he says, then adds, "We have an investor presentation Monday. If I don't come through, everything collapses." He takes my hand like it's a notary stamp. I pull away. "I need specifics," I say. He blinks. "Em, please, not now." The hallway light flickers twice, like a bad omen clearing its throat. I reach for my phone and open notes. "Start at the beginning," I say. "Names, amounts, dates." He glances at the door like he expects someone else to walk through it right now. When Adrian and I met, he was the busboy who danced while stacking dishes, and I was the tutor who corrected menus for free because typos made me itch. We built a life out of hand-me-downs and shared calendars. His laugh bounced off our thrifted plates. He loved my classroom stories, how I kept a shoe box of anonymous compliments for kids who couldn't look up. Then his boss called him visionary. It was like switching his coffee for rocket fuel. Overnight, he stopped being content with our library cards and started practicing his TED Talk voice in the mirror. It wasn't "we made rent." It was "we're underutilizing our potential." He rebranded our Saturday laundry as legacy planning. I said, "It's Tide." He said, "It's mindset." The creep of contempt was quiet at first. He joked that my students were my fan club. He mocked staff meetings as participation trophies. The first real wound landed at Tessa's birthday dinner, when he raised a glass and thanked everyone for supporting his upgrade while squeezing my shoulder like a doorbell. "Emma keeps the home fires lukewarm," he said, to a ring of expensive laughter. I smiled because Tessa's eyes were begging me to, and because my aunt's voice in my head said, "Pick your battlefield." Later, in the Uber, I said, "That hurt." He replied, "You misheard the bit. It killed." The next morning a package arrived, a blazer labeled Grant Rider Gray. "For you," he said, "so you can look the part when I introduce you to investors." 2 weeks ago, he told me point blank we were out of sync. He would move into a friend's high-rise for focus, and I could use this season to revisit ambition. He framed it as a sabbatical from me. Us, marriage. He packed an overnight bag like he was curating an exhibit about himself. I moved my lesson plans to the couch and learned the weight of a microwave dinner cooked for one. Aunt Rosa dropped off soup and advice. Men who sprint past their shadow get bit by it later. I laughed then. Tonight, her words feel like a forecast. Adrian clears his throat in our kitchen as if we're courteous strangers at a conference. The first red flag arrived as a beige envelope that pretended to be nothing, windowed, generic, addressed to Adrian's management company, which I didn't realize existed until the mailman placed it on our doormat. I slid it open with a ruler like I tell my students not to do and saw the word lean. The amount wasn't catastrophic, but it was the shape of a future avalanche. When I asked, Adrian said, "It's a paperwork glitch," and kissed my forehead like I was the glitch. The second red flag was a call from a boutique that wanted to confirm a return on a limited edition jacket I'd never seen. "We can refund to the original card ending 0029, the voice chirped. "Wrong number," I said, because 0029 wasn't any card I knew. He brushed that off as operational. The third was the smell of burnt sugar on his hoodie, the kind you only get from those rooftop bars where cocktails come with smoke and a photographer. He swaggered through all of it, louder than the facts. "Momentum, babe," he'd say, pacing, phone to ear, using words like runway and burn and angel, not the kind of angels who grade homework with stickers. I wrote in my planner, "Ask about 0029. Ask about lean. Ask why our bathtub is full of merch samples." Then I doubted myself. Teachers are trained to assume good intent first. What if I was turning paperwork into monsters? The next afternoon, a boy in a too-big suit knocked during dinner and handed me a thick packet, asking for Adrian. "Are you authorized?" he said. "I's not meeting mine." "To receive?" I asked. He nodded, grateful to be anywhere else. The word summons appeared on top like it had been waiting for air. When Adrian came by to pick up gear, I slid the packet over the countertop like a quiz I knew he hadn't studied for. He smiled without teeth. "It's nothing," he said, and the nothing thudded like a safe dropping between us. Later, after dishes, I opened the bedroom closet and saw 3 shopping bags with the same boutique logo, receipts rubber-banded in loops like tourniquets. Return windows were circled. My name wasn't on anything. "We good?" he texted at 1:18 a.m. from an unknown skyline. I texted back, "Which card ends in 0029, Adrian?" He chose a public place to humiliate me because audiences embolden performers. Tessa had invited us to a launch party at a co-working space where the plants were probably on retainer. Adrian introduced me as Emma, who's amazing with kids and rubrics, like I was a beloved security blanket. When I asked about the summons, his smile turned into a warning sign. "Don't bring teacher energy to an adult room," he murmured, still smiling for someone's story. People laughed like cymbals. I felt my cheeks heat and my backbone cool. He put a hand on my lower back and guided me away, the way you steer a chair, not a person. "We are in front of investors," he said through clamped teeth. "Try not to spiral." At 9, a process server walked into the party with the confidence of a guy who knows everyone will pretend he's invisible. He asked for Adrian by full name. Silence did a slow wave through the room. I watched my husband accept the stack, nod, and slide it beneath a glossy brochure like a child hiding broccoli under mashed potatoes. "Troll," he said, forcing a chuckle. Whispers moved like smoke. I could make out debt, NDA, and default. Tessa's hand found my elbow. "He's got it handled," she whispered, as if the volume controlled the truth. I asked, "Has he ever not had it handled?" She looked at me with sisterly pity and brand loyalty. We took an Uber home in brittle silence. He turned up a playlist of triumphant horns and said, "You made me look weak." I said, "The server did that. And your choices?" He laughed ugly. "This is why you'll always be small," he said, the words hitting like ice water. "You think everything is an essay you can grade for neatness." I stared out at the city reflected in the window, tall and unbothered. When we got upstairs, he grabbed a weekender bag. "I'm staying at Kohl's," he said. "I need focus until the raise clears." He kissed the air near my cheek, a parody of intimacy. The door shut with the finality of a gavel. I sat on the floor, back to the door, and let the quiet name me. Exile looks like 2 toothbrushes that stop drying side by side. It sounds like a kettle finishing alone. I rearranged the living room because the couch remembered too many arguments. At school, I kept smiling at kids and breaking in the supply closet. After dismissal, I packed a backpack with essays and took them to Aunt Rose's because her kitchen table understood grief like a second language. She watched me read until the red pen looked like a wound. "Pick your battlefield," she said again, stirring pozole. "But don't confuse patience with surrender." I slept in my own bed like a house guest and counted breaths over the hum of the fridge. Tessa sent check-in texts heavy with PR gloss. He's under a lot of pressure, M. The raise is real. Be strategic. Rent hit. So did our internet bill. Adrian's contribution did not. He offered an explanation in emojis, rockets, hourglasses, handshake, and then the polite threat. It would be career-limiting for me if you make noise. I stared at the message and pictured my students writing arguments with evidence. I pictured myself erasing mine. At school, a parent thanked me for keeping her son after to finish an essay. You're the first teacher who didn't call him lazy, she said, eyes wet. I walked back to my empty classroom and let that sentence tether me to something that wasn't vanishing. On Friday, after a full week of being strategic, I opened our joint file cabinet to look for last year's taxes and found a phone I didn't recognize tucked under a stack of warranty booklets. It buzzed as if it had been waiting for my attention. The lock screen showed a WhatsApp thread labeled Investors and a preview that read, "Send the escrow proof or the NDA goes live." My stomach slid to the floor like it knew the way. I picked up the phone and heard my own breath loud as sirens in my ear. I didn't open the WhatsApp thread right away. I set the phone down like it might bite and opened the utility drawer to find rubber gloves. It felt ridiculous, but touching Adrian's secrets with bare hands felt worse. I snapped a photo of the lock screen on my own phone, time-stamped, then powered the burner on and toggled airplane mode, then off, the way my students reboot school-issued tablets. Messages flooded in, green dots blooming like mold. A contact saved as Cole demanded screenshots of an escrow account and referenced a comfort letter from a bank that did not exist in our state. Another number, saved only as 0029, sent 2 thumbs up and a photo of a wire receipt with my last name misspelled. The account number was partially visible. My head rang. I took more photos. Evidence first, panic later. I copied the phone's entire media folder to my laptop with shaking fingers. Photos, PDFs, voice notes. He'd recorded a practice pitch where he called me legacy baggage and promised investors he was cleaning up optics. I paused the audio when my name made me flinch. I opened email on the phone next and saw an inbox labeled Upward Co., Adrian's new company, connected to a Gmail with his birthday and a dot between first and last name. There was a message from a boutique bank's compliance officer asking for clarification on a bridge facility and mentioning a Uniform Commercial Code filing, UCC 1, against inventory. Inventory of what? His slides showed lifestyle boxes, hoodies, gadgets, access. Access to what? The most concrete clue was boring. A past due notice for a personal credit line with a minimum payment circled and a due date that had already limped past. The payment confirmation numbers listed a familiar last four, 0029. Another thread referenced a silent partner and a guarantee letter he drafted on someone else's letterhead. I recognized the font from our wedding invitations. He always loved appearances more than substance. I took screenshots until my phone warned me about storage. Then I did what I should have done a month ago. I called Aunt Rosa and told her everything, breathless and apologetic. I printed the bank emails and laid them on the kitchen table in chronological order, sliding sticky notes between them like captions. The thread hopped time zones. The promises inflated, then contradicted themselves. Figures rounded up like optimism was a calculator. I wrote out every date in black pen and matched it to my calendar. The day he asked for space. The day our rent fell short. The day he posted a rooftop photo captioned, "Momentum is a love language." It wasn't a crime lab, but it was a start, and starting felt like oxygen at last. Then the burner lit up again with a name I recognized. Aunt Rosa listened without interrupting, the way she listens to boiling water. When I finished, she exhaled like a valve. "You're going to need a neutral pair of eyes," she said. "And you're going to need to stop trying to be fair to a fire. She has a way of serving truth with soup. Come by tomorrow," she said. "Bring the phone. Bring whatever hurts to look at." I asked if she thought I should warn Tessa. Silence hummed. "Not yet," Rosa said. "Information is leverage. Panic is gasoline." I slept like a witness under protective custody and woke with the peculiar clarity of the newly betrayed. Saturday, we took the burner, my screenshots, and a notepad to a branch of the bank whose logo appeared in Adrian's emails. "We need to confirm whether this account exists," I said to a desk manager named Jordan who looked too young for his tie. I showed him the cropped wire receipt and the comfort letter. Jordan frowned, tapped, excused himself. When he returned, he wore the face people wear when they're trying not to call security. "We don't issue comfort letters," he said carefully. "And this account number doesn't follow our formatting." He asked how we'd gotten the documents. "My husband," I said, and watched the word chip as it hit the desk. "We left with a business card for a compliance hotline and an instruction to email the documents." In the parking lot, my phone buzzed with a text from 0029. "Need your signature at the co-working space today. Just a routine update." I took a photo of that too. Evidence first. Panic later. On the way home, we stopped for coffee and I interviewed myself like I teach my students to interview primary sources. Who authored this? Who benefits? What's missing? I realized there were voice notes I hadn't fully listened to. Back at Rose's, we sat at the table and pressed play on one labeled beta pitch. No spouse. Adrian's voice filled the room, smooth as a salesman. "We've got guaranteed inventory, a committed sponsor, and a partner who won't make noise," he said, then laughed. "She's a teacher," he added, almost fondly. "She can't afford to burn it down." Back home, I opened a new doc titled Timeline and forced myself to type in verbs, not vibes. Received lien notice. Observed process server. Found burner phone. Bank denied account. Bullet points made the chaos obey a grammar. I saved it to cloud and to a flash drive in a pencil pouch labeled hall passes. I texted Tessa, "Dinner tomorrow?" She replied instantly, "Of course. Keep it chill." My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I typed, deleted, typed again, settled on, "We'll talk." Rosa brewed chai and set it down like a candle between us. "When men sell mirrors," she said softly, "ask who they stole the light from." He'd bet I wouldn't burn it down. I lit a match. I thought I understood the contours of his deceit until the ex-assistant messaged back. I'd found her through a LinkedIn page that still listed Upward Co. in lowercase letters, as if capitalization would overpromise. "Do you have 15 minutes? I wrote, "I'm trying to close a loop." She replied with a phone number and a warning. "I'm on lunch. I can talk till 1. Her name was Nia, and her fatigue sounded 10 years older than her. "He made me send wires to a shell," she said, like she was telling me bad weather was rolling in. "He called it a vendor." It was him. Well, him and a poker buddy. She described Thursday nights that started as networking and ended with table minimums that could fund a school library. "He told me to put it on the investor card," she said. "Investor card? Ending in 0029? I asked. She confirmed. "He promised a raise after the Series A," Nia said. Then my direct deposit bounced. She forwarded me 2 emails where Adrian approved bridge reimbursements to a Cayman LLC that shared an address with a mailbox store. The subject line read, neatly, "Optics." The dates lined up with our rent going missing. My mouth went metallic. "Why didn't you go to the police?" I asked. "I needed references," she said. "I signed an NDA that had my old apartment address spelled wrong. He said he'd ruin me if I broke it." My pen made grooves in the paper. "He never thought you'd look," Nia said, not unkindly. "Teachers grade receipts too, I guess." She laughed, brittle. "He said you were steady." After we hung up, I sat very still and tried to map the blast radius. If he'd used Aunt Rose's gift savings, she'd sold a bracelet to help with our down payment. How would I repay her? If Tessa's condo was collateral, she'd once joked he'd papered it with confidence. What would happen when paper met fire? I pulled the lease file and scanned for clauses. There it was, in a rider I hadn't examined because I trusted him with the boring parts. An addendum granting permission to assign interest for financing activities. My initials were on the bottom. I didn't remember signing it, but the date matched wine and a documentary night. I was tired of learning paperwork backwards, and I was nowhere near done. The mini twist arrived in an email from a boutique bank's domain that looked legitimate until the last dot. Attorney Blake, a friend of Rose's from church, came over with reading glasses and a comb that smelled like peppermint. He flipped through my folder quietly, then drew a rectangle on a legal pad. "This is your exposure," he said, shading our joint assets. "This is his exposure, shading the rest. He's simulated guarantees." I asked about the Cayman LLC. "Classic misdirection," he said. "Easy to scare people with the word offshore. The bigger problem is domestic fraud." He held up the comfort letter. This is counterfeit, he said. Banks don't comfort, they confirm. He smiled gently. We can verify with the UCC filings. If he pledged anything with your signature, we'll see it. He dialed a public records line and dictated Adrian's full name like he was reading a weather report. While we waited, I watched dust float through late sun like quiet confetti from a party I hadn't attended. The clerk emailed a batch of filings. There were 2 UCC ones. One against inventory under Upward Co., one against household goods under Adrian Rivera, with an attachment listing electronics, furnishings, artwork. My stomach flipped. Our TV, the framed print from our honeymoon thrift store, the mixer Aunt Rosa gave me when she taught me to fold batter. He can't do that without your consent, Blake said, scanning. But if your initials were forged, we can prove it. He looked at me. You're going to need a plan. Evidence, then controlled exposure, not a brawl. I opened notes and wrote a lesson objective like I do for my students. By the end of this unit, I will demonstrate the ability to protect my future by presenting documented evidence to relevant parties, using clear language and observable facts. Assessment, freedom. Materials, phone, emails, filings, a spine. I took a breath. We gather proof, I said. Then we choose the room. Blake nodded. Make him tell the story to people who can measure it. I didn't tell him how much of me still wanted Adrian to apologize and mean it. Choosing the room meant choosing the risk. If I confronted Adrian alone, he'd gaslight me into apologizing for the weather. If I went public too soon, he'd spin panic into pity. I decided to stage an exposure with guardrails. I scanned the filings, labeled the screenshots, and saved everything twice. I recorded a call with Adrian after letting him stew for a day. I'm ready to help, I said, flat. But I need the investor list to verify wires. He tried charm first. You've always had that administrative sparkle, he purred. Then he tried menace. If you leak anything, it will be very, very expensive. I let the silence breathe until he filled it. Fine, he snapped. I'll bring the paperwork to Tessa's Sunday dinner. We can settle this as a family. Perfect. A family dinner with witnesses and mashed potatoes, my kind of courtroom. The night of, Aunt Rosa wore her church sternness like armor. Tessa had arranged peonies that smelled like reprieves. Adrian arrived late, dressed like a verdict. He kissed Tessa's cheek, hugged Rosa, and patted my shoulder like we were colleagues after a memo. Let's eat first, Tessa urged, voice bright enough to crack. Over roast chicken, Adrian talked about momentum and runway, while I counted place settings like prayer beads. When plates cleared, I pulled a manila envelope from my tote and placed it on the table. I need clarity, I said. On these. I slid copies of the UCC filings and the comfort letter toward him. His jaw flickered. He picked them up delicately, like evidence leaves fingerprints. What are you doing? Tessa whispered. Saving all of us, I said, and my voice sounded older. Adrian tried a laugh that didn't fit his mouth. These are out of context, he said. This is how deals are done. Rosa tapped the comfort letter. Banks don't comfort, she said, and I almost smiled. Adrian's eyes shot to mine, dark with recognition. He knew I knew. We'll talk privately, he said, a command wrapped in civility. No, I replied. We'll talk where lies can't hide behind volume. He stood, the chair barked, and silence rearranged the room's gravity. Adrian reached for the envelope, but I slid it away like a teacher protecting an answer key. Sit, Aunt Rosa said, not unkindly, and he obeyed out of muscle memory or surprise. Tessa wrung a napkin until it looked like a white flag. This is a misunderstanding, Adrian said, eyes on his sister, as if he could Photoshop the moment with sincerity. I opened my laptop. I emailed Attorney Blake, I said. He suggested a brief meeting with a bank officer to authenticate these documents. I invited them to join us by video. Adrian scoffed. You brought a lawyer to dinner? He said. I brought a witness to a story that keeps changing, I answered. The screen blinked to life and displayed Blake's face boxy and calm, and a second window with a bank compliance officer named Ms. Huang, who had the patient posture of a person who normalizes flames for a living. We verified names and roles. Mr. Rivera, M.S. Huang said. We received a comfort letter purporting to be from our institution. We do not issue such letters. Can you explain the source? Adrian's smile curdled. A template, he said lightly. Everyone uses them. Blake adjusted his glasses. Templates exist, he said, for things that exist. Ms. Huang continued. Also, account ending 4021 is invalid in our system. I clicked to share my screen and displayed the WhatsApp thread with 0029. Tessa gasped softly. Whose card is that? She asked. Adrian rubbed the back of his neck and said, It's an investor. Don't be provincial. I played the voice note where he called me legacy baggage. He blanched. Out of context, he tried again, voice thinner. Rosa leaned forward. Context is the juice you spill on the floor, she said. We're looking at the stain. Ms. Huang spoke crisply. Mr. Rivera, did you instruct anyone to move funds from Upward Co. to the Cayman entity listed here? He went very still, calculating which no would be least perjurious. Optics, he finally said, smiling too much. We should end this call. Blake's eyebrows lifted. We should not. I watched his mask tilt, and then I watched it fall. The big reveal didn't arrive as one explosion. It arrived as a series of clicks. Blake shared a screen showing the public UCC filings, MS. Huang confirmed the letter's counterfeit formatting. I queued Nia's forwarded emails where Adrian approved wires to the shell. Rosa read aloud the lease rider clause. Tessa called out the dates that overlapped with her condo's refinancing. Each click was a metronome tick marking the end of a dance. Adrian tried to keep up, but his shoes were full of mud. It wasn't fraud, he insisted, voice cracking. It was pressure. Everyone does short-term optics while they raise. MS. Huang's expression did not change. Optics do not move money, she said. Instructions do. What about the investor card ending 0029? I asked. He stared at me like I'd stolen his lines. That's Cole's card, he said. He offered. I opened a PDF from the burner's files, a credit application signed with our address, and, my breath snagged, my forged initials. Cole's generosity looks like my initials, I said quietly. Tessa whispered my name like a prayer she'd never learned. Adrian's face went flat, the veneer gone. This is theater, he said. You don't understand venture. You're a teacher. I felt something inside me stand up. I understand consent, I said. And math. And kids who lie because they're scared. Blake cleared his throat. Mr. Rivera, we recommend you cease further transfers and prepare to cooperate, he said. If not, we will refer this to the authorities with supporting documentation. Adrian flinched. You wouldn't, he said to me, as if appealing to a former version of myself. I already did, I said, and it was true. Earlier that afternoon, I had emailed the compliance hotline with the files. A notification pinged my inbox now, received. Thank you for your report. Case number attached. Tessa stood, chair trembling. Did you use my condo as collateral? She asked. He closed his eyes. It's temporary, he said. Rosa reached across the table and took my hand like a witness taking an oath. Fallout began like weather. Quiet, then decisive. Ms. Huang ended the call with instructions for following up. Blake emailed a list of next steps that read like a lifeline. Adrian sank into his chair like it might swallow him. You don't have to do this, he said. We can fix it. I studied the man I had married and saw the boy who learned that charm erased chalk lines. Fixing starts with stopping, I said. He left without taking any leftovers. The next morning brought the first consequence. A hold on Upward Co.'s accounts pending review. By lunch, his inbox had sprouted demands for clarification. At 3, I received a call from a detective who asked me to come in and give a statement. I wore my most boring cardigan to the station because boring signaled credibility. At the station, Detective Morales asked patient, map questions that made the story hold its shape. He cared about dates, amounts, routing numbers, signatures. I slid my notes across the table and felt absurdly grateful for every rubric I'd ever written. They trained me to be specific. Morales photographed the forged initials beside my real ones. You did the right thing, he said without drama, which made it land. Back at school, gossip found me at the copier. I pretended not to hear and fixed a jam like it owed me rent. Principal Harris slid me a sticky note. Proud of you for taking care of you. I saved it behind my library card. By evening, emails multiplied like fruit flies. The compliance case number generated automated acknowledgments. A former vendor replied that invoices had been reclassified without consent. Cole sent a single line, call me, which I forwarded to Blake without comment. I updated my timeline and highlighted every place my name or property appeared. It felt sterile and powerful, like discovering a light switch in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark. Rosa made tea and left me alone long enough to remember what quiet sounds like when it isn't loneliness but relief. I placed the envelope in a clear plastic sleeve like evidence in a classroom mystery unit. Healing didn't look like triumph. It looked like schedules. I found a therapist who specialized in financial abuse and said, "I didn't know you could abuse with spreadsheets." She nodded and slid me a handout labeled boundaries or budgets. We made a plan I could grade. Don't respond to off-the-record messages. Require written communication through counsel. Separate accounts. Change passwords. Freeze credit. Document every contact. Aunt Rosa helped me batch cook, folding comfort into Tupperware. Tessa came over with a box of photos and a shaky apology. "I needed to believe in him," she said. "It made my life easier." I hugged her because the truth hurts enough without garnish. We went to the courthouse together to file a protective order, just in case charm grew claws. Routines grew muscles. I set alarms titled water, move, and oh. I put my credit report in my calendar like an anniversary. I opened an account at a credit union where the teller remembered my name by the second visit, and the relief almost knocked me over. I built a folder called Future Me and filled it with things that would make her life easier. Copies of my passport, emergency contacts, a letter to my students explaining subplans like treasure maps. On Thursdays I walked with Rosa and let the river's brown shine reset my spine. I returned the blazer labeled Grant Rider Gray and bought a soft sweater that looked like relief. In class, the consumer literacy unit turned electric. Students brought in real mailers, and we circled predatory APRs with neon highlighters. One kid said, "They think we're dumb," and another answered, "We aren't." I taped their words above the whiteboard. A grandmother sent me a voicemail thanking me for helping her granddaughter close a store card she couldn't afford. I cried in the parking lot and felt my shame rinse out like soap. Progress was not glamorous, but it was real, and real held. One night, I fell asleep without flinching at the dryer's sudden thumps. I'm not naive enough to call this a happy ending, but I can name it a clean page. The bank closed the case with a letter that said, "Thank you for your vigilance." The detective called to say charges may proceed. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me, and said I'd be available to testify if needed. Aunt Rosa's bracelet will not be coming back, but her savings will, in installments with the decency of calendar invites. Tessa opened a savings account with her name only. I taught my students a new prompt. Write about a time you realized the story you were in was different from the one you were telling yourself. They wrote like it mattered, and I graded like it did too. The quiet gifts surprised me. Sleeping through sirens, laughing at a dumb show, answering a student's email with patience I didn't have last month. I sold the last of the wedding china and used the cash to buy classroom books with protagonists who make mistakes and still get tomorrow. My therapist said, "You grieved a future. Now you're building a present." And I wrote it on a recipe card. I stopped rehearsing the speech where Adrian apologized correctly. I stopped auditing my own worth. I don't believe fate punished Adrian for arrogance. I think cause and effect did. There's comfort in that. I started keeping a ledger of tiny victories. Fixed the leaky faucet myself. Negotiated my phone bill down. Said no to a coffee when I wanted to say yes because I was lonely. I said yes to joining a weekend book club because I wanted to hear other people's sentences in a room that wasn't mine. The ledger made it obvious. I wasn't waiting for rescue. I was practicing living. When Tessa texted a photo of her new budget spreadsheet, columns tidy, formulas humming, I sent back 3 confetti emojis and meant them.